This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 574, entitled "The Gender War Between Masculists and Feminists Will Get Worse Before It Gets Better." Description. This flyer predicts a 6-phase gender war between the monoconscious feminists and the biconscious masculists, until nearly all monoconscious feminists have been converted to being biconscious, so that the gender war can die. But getting to that stage will involve a very verbally violent phase 3, in which a gender political war is waged, which will destroy the quality of life and happiness of millions of women at the hands of hateful masculists, until these women convert themselves to being biconscious, lose their feminazi bitchiness at men, and become much nicer for men to be with. Those feminists who remain stubbornly, stupidly monoconscious will be dumped by their boyfriends in disgust at the hypocrisy and bigotry of their monoconscious feminist girlfriends, who then make these women their ex-girlfriends. The flyer itself. The gender war between masculists and feminists will get worse before it gets better. By Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. I'm anticipating a gender war between the feminists and the masculists over the next few years, and it is a war that I stand behind and hope to play a part in. This flyer asserts that this war will get a lot worse before it starts getting better, and a lot of verbal blood will be spilt. This flyer spells out the likely phases that this war will go through before the dust settles. Firstly, why do masculists want such a war in the first place? Because women are committing such massive gender crimes against men that men are growing so hateful towards women, that is, certain categories of women, that tempers have frayed to the point that a verbal gender war is almost inevitable. Phase 1 will be the expression of masculist hatred of fluffies and fluffy feminists. Phase 2 will be the reaction of the monoconscious feminists. Phase 3 will be a pitched battle between the feminists and the masculists. Phase 4 will be the conversion of many formerly monoconscious feminists to biconscious feminists. Phase 5 will be the mass conversion of monoconscious feminists to biconscious feminists. Phase 6 will be an armistice, as most women have become biconscious and are no longer willing to fight the masculists. Phase 1. Phase 1 is ongoing now, with the uploading of many masculist videos to the manosphere, thus spreading the masculist doctrine to thousands, later hundreds of thousands of men, masculisting them, making them conscious of how women commit massive gender crimes against men, particularly with women's manslavery, women's divorce rape, women's forced fathering, etc. That is, massive gender crimes that make men extremely angry and hateful at those women who commit such horrific gender crimes that last for decades, that make them far more serious than the relatively minor ways that men oppress women. As the number of men who become masculisted grows and grows, there will be many verbally bitter confrontations between monoconscious feminists and biconscious masculists, particularly on campus and in private conversations, to the point that millions of relationships between monoconscious feminists and their freshly minted biconscious boyfriends result in the relationships failing, as the biconscious boyfriends get fed up with the monoconscious bigotry and hypocrisy of their monoconscious girlfriends and dump them. These Biconscious boyfriends will become disgusted at the hypocrisy and monoconscious ignorance of their feminist girlfriends who have been bitching for the past 6 decades how men oppress women, when in fact women oppress men far worse. For example, the big 3 mentioned above. Feminism is such a profoundly misandrist and gynocentric ideology that women learn nothing from feminism about how women oppress men. This one-sided bigotry, this inability to see or be willing to see that gender oppression is in fact a two-way street, is what really pisses off the biconscious boyfriends who get so fed up they dump their feminazi girlfriends, seeing them as shibbers, that's SHB-ERS, that's sexist, hypocritical bigots, and MFBs, that's monoconscious feminazi bigots, and reject them, and then go looking for biconscious girlfriends who are a lot nicer to be with. Phase 2. Phase 2 starts when there are enough monoconscious feminists who have had their fingers burned by their interaction with enough biconscious masculists that they realise that there is a growing problem, that their 6-decade monopoly over gender politics is now being very seriously challenged by a new formidable enemy, that is the Masculists, that is men, who now have their own gender political ideology that, like a new religion, galvanizes them and gives them the energy, courage and motivation to fight the feminists. Once the feminist movement is sufficiently conscious that their very existence is being seriously challenged, they will react, and react strongly, since they have had a 6 decades lasting powerful brainwashing that gender oppression is a one-way street. So they take it for granted that masculism is just more male chauvinism against women and something to be fought against. The fact that some very heavy academic males are now masculists will only motivate them all the more to fight this new significant challenge to their monopoly over gender politics. Phase 3. The difference between ordinary blue pill men and masculists is that with blue pillers, in brackets, that is traditional men who know nothing of masculist nor MGTOW ideas, close brackets, whenever they hear feminists lashing out at the ways that men oppress women, e.g. rape, domestic violence, sexual harassment, patriarchy, etc., they usually just slink away quietly. But the masculist reaction is new. They behave very differently. They not only fight back, but are out to crush the feminists with their superior intelligence and greatly superior verbal aggression, with their 10 times greater testosterone levels in their blood than women. The masculists see the monoconscious feminists as hypocrites and misandrists and increasingly hate them, especially the fluffy feminists who control the divorce courts and butcher the lives of one father in 4. After millions of bitter, verbally violent confrontations between the monoconscious feminists and biconscious masculists, the feminists will become very aware that they have a formidable new enemy who has the intention of crushing feminism. So the feminists will be galvanized to defend their turf, their gender political dominance, their feminist power in society, in the courts, in the law, in the parliaments. They will fight with all their strength, but so will the masculists. And since the masculists have their own male-created gender political ideology, they will win many battles and scare the monoconscious feminists shitless, that the masculists may also win the war. So for some years, the gender war between the monoconscious feminists and the biconscious masculists will be very verbally bloody. Phase 4. An inevitable consequence of the bitter ideological gender war in the previous phase will be the growing awareness of the feminists as to what the masculists are saying to them, or more accurately, ramming down their throats. The media will pick up on these bitter disputes, and even if the female feminist journalists only take an attitude of, quote, know your enemy, they will inevitably pass on masculine arguments, masculine ideas to their publics, so that Masculist ideas spread amongst the female population. Female awareness of Masculist ideas and values will spread, so that a growing number of the more quick-witted feminists will begin to see the sense of what the Masculists are saying and become female Masculists, and hence soften their anger at men for the ways that men oppress women, because they see that women also oppress men, and in fact worse. So they become a lot less feminazi bitchy towards men, and hence become a lot nicer to be with for men. Phase 5. Over time, the number of the above female Masculists will rise and rise until it becomes a flood. What will really promote this flooding will be the awareness amongst women that there are now so many biconscious feminists, that is, who are both feminists and female Masculists, that the monoconscious feminists see all around them that it is the biconscious feminists who are taking the men from the monoconscious feminists. And the media is telling them that men far prefer having relationships with biconscious feminists, since biconscious feminists are a lot nicer to be with, much less feminazi bitchy, not misandrist, male-dumping, feminazi cunts, but are women who see both sides of the gender political story, both feminist and masculist, so are far less feminazi biased than monoconscious feminists. Phase 6. From the above flood stage will follow the defeat of monoconscious feminism, as the number of monoconscious feminists dwindles away to zero, as it becomes clear to everyone that men utterly reject monoconscious feminazis, seeing them as hypocritical bigots, as MFBs, that's monoconscious feminazi bigots, as shibbers, that's SHB, ERS, sexist hypocritical bigots, who are spat on by men and utterly rejected. Since most women want a man in their lives to help her raise the kids she really wants, then she knows that she has to be nice to a man, or she doesn't get one. Most men in phase 6 have been masculisted, who won't tolerate monoconscious feminazis, who will spit in their faces and just walk out the door on them. After phase 6, the gender war will be over, and relations between the two sexes will be a lot better than they were in phases 2 and 3. Good. That is what the Masculists want. That is what we Masculists are fighting for. We want a phase 6, but to get there we have to go through the inevitable earlier phases, especially phase 3. The pitched ideological war between the monoconscious feminists and the biconscious masculists. So, speaking as a masculist, I say, quote, bring on the war, the gender war, so that men are liberated too. Gender oppression is not a one-way street, end quote. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Prof. Hugo de Garis at yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book, Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man's Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 570 plus Masculist flyers for men's studies courses, freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.